everyone, me Kevin here. My goodness, we have a lot to talk about in this one. Not only is AOC moving from tax the rich to cut the military, we've got to talk about $1,000 debit cards coming out in the form of stimulus for some. We've got no surprise that Republicans are still steadfast on not helping Democrats fund the government and raise the debt limit. We've got new numbers for Biden and Harris, and folks, the government shutdown is getting closer. Let's get right into this, but as usual, make sure to get yourself life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. You can get that via the link down below or go to metkevin.com/life. metkevin.com/life. Get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. All right, folks, Gallup polls are out. Biden's approval numbers are at a new low, 43%, and Harris is now at 49%. The House is also apparently trying to put language in the House rules that would basically block Republicans from being able to force inquiries into the executive branch. Now, this is less powerful than a court-ordered subpoena, but it's still pretty powerful. In fact, Democrats use this frequently to push inquiries against Donald Trump, whether those were Russian inquiries or election inquiries, whatever. Now, McCarthy says that Kevin McCarthy, that is, of course, the minority leader in the House of Representatives, says, hey, this is going to come back to haunt the Democrats when Republicans win power in 2022, which is obviously something a lot of Republicans want and Donald Trump wants to see happen. This story, by the way, was actually first reported by CNN, which is crazy because CNN usually heavily supports the left. But then I realized that CNN buried the article and it's nowhere to be found on their front page. At least when I saw it, I had to find it by digging for it. And when I did a search on the front page, there was no reference to this at all. But anyway, that doesn't surprise me. Moving on. Remember yesterday we talked about House progressives killing the $1 trillion in Iron Dome funding? Well, they've already reintroduced that bill. There's still some Democrats who are torn about supporting this, but we'll see what happens with the $1 billion for the Iron Dome. It's something that's part of our normal foreign aid. It's something that we normally do. It's something that Israel normally goes to expect. And this is something that is upsetting Republicans even more especially, and even some Democrats. And there seems to be a whole lot of lack of unity in Congress right now, especially amongst the Democratic Party. So it's a little confusing. This is kind of just like a sideshow in addition to the craziness going on with the infrastructure package and Joe Biden, which we got to talk about that right after I talk about the fact that AOC says we've got to reduce the Pentagon's budget by at least 10% and prioritize our communities at home. Now, she specifically referenced COVID as something that she wants to spend more money on by mentioning that today we can cut our defense authorization without denying service members and free up $77 billion to go towards fighting COVID and other priorities at home. I wonder if all those other priorities include a cut the military dress. I'd be kind of curious to see what that would look like, cut the military. But anyway, I'd also wonder if maybe AOC will finally help push for financial education in schools, something that I think every progressive and every Democrat and every Republican, quite frankly, everybody watching this video should be supportive of. We don't get enough financial education in schools. Fortunately, we do have financial education courses, linked down below, with a coupon code expiring Friday. All right, folks, on the stimulus package, look, and we'll talk about a $1,000 debit card in just a moment as well. On the stimulus package, Joe Biden knows that this $3.5 trillion package is really make or break for his administration. He's pushing to get this plan done, and he's meeting with representatives to make sure it happens. But the thing is, McConnell is really clear. He says, look, we can't default. Do not default. The debt ceiling needs to be raised. But Democrats, you guys got to get it done yourselves. We're not going to help. So don't play Russian roulette with our economy. Now, of course, publicly, Democrats want to come across as winning and being entirely in control. So after Pelosi and Schumer's meeting with Joe Biden today, Nancy Pelosi said, we're calm and everyone's good. Our work's almost done, implying that things are together when they're really falling apart and everything's a total cluster F. She also mentions that we are on schedule for our bipartisan infrastructure package, which also does not actually appear to be true. We're supposed to have a vote on this on Monday or potentially over the weekend. I don't expect that to happen. We'll talk more about that in a moment. And Nancy Pelosi says she does not want to talk about budget reconciliation at the moment, which is, of course, the alternative for funding the government and raising the debt ceiling if they can't get their bipartisan bill complete. Chuck Schumer says we've made some good progress, and some other folks have mentioned we had a great meeting and we'll be talking more. So it sounds to me like a whole lot of nothing. So far, though, if anybody's losing, it kind of seems like it's Democrats. I say this because the party lacks a whole lot of any kind of unity. At least 50 Democrats have now vowed in the House of Representatives to vote against the bipartisan infrastructure package on Monday. Democrats can only afford to lose 3 seats. That means the bipartisan infrastructure package, that $1 trillion package that both Republicans and Democrats signed in the Senate, might not get voted on the 27th. If it doesn't get voted on the 27th, You're going to lose people like Kirsten Sinema to support the $3.5 trillion bill. She said, I want you to honor that 27th date. So you might lose both infrastructure packages. It's also going to piss off Republicans who are going to have a media field day over how Democrats are holding that $1 trillion package hostage. You also had 11 liberal senators, other senators in the Senate saying, yeah, maybe Nancy Pelosi should delay the bipartisan infrastructure vote if there's not enough support for it. Now, this is, of course, separate from extending the government budget and raising the debt ceiling, but it shows you really how uncoordinated things are. It's literally like the Democratic Party is just like a delicate vase that was dropped and shattered everywhere. And you've got, some people over here going cancel student debt and cancel rent. And then you get some people over here going, hey, we should have a smaller infrastructure package. And you get some people over here going, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling or fund the government unless we get our big $3.5 trillion package, because they really want to have their big package. And other people are like, well, let's at least pass the debt ceiling, changes and fund the government and then deal with the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package. But other people are like, no, but you said you would deal with it on the 20th. It is literally a disaster. And this is, of course, what's leading to people like John Tester, a Democrat from Montana, to say things like, quote, I don't know if people are going to put their sane minds on and do what needs to be done or shut it down, in reference to shutting the government down. He says, this is a ridiculous exercise. I can't even compare it to anything I do on the farm that's this stupid. He literally then says, quote, we always do this, and he actually says the word effing dance. Got Republican from Texas, John Cornyn, saying, I don't think Democrats want to shut down the government. And you can kind of see that PR push where Republicans are kind of like, well, it's up to Democrats to pass the budget and raise the debt ceiling. We're just going to kind of sit back and watch. And if Democrats fail, it's their fault. We don't want to shut down the government. Hopefully Democrats don't want to shut down the government, but we don't want to shut down the government. It's turning into a branding disaster for Democrats. Certainly doesn't help that you have Democrats who are trying to spit back by saying things like, well, our hands are tied. We can't do anything. You got House Budget Committee Chairperson John Yarmuth now saying that his experts have concluded that we probably don't have enough time to raise the debt ceiling through budget reconciliation, a process that could potentially take up to 3 weeks, which we need to get this done by the middle of October, which is about 3 weeks ago now. So we got some work to do, but we haven't started work on reconciliation for raising the debt ceiling or funding the government. Republicans are like, nah, you're good. You can get it done. Quietly, of course, Democrats are probably freaking out knowing that if this is the first default ever and it's under a Democratic administration, Republicans know they'll have a lot of power coming to them next year in the 2022 midterms. So this is a perfect political stalemate for Republicans. I think Republicans are eating this up, especially since you had John Kennedy saying he would vote for extending the debt ceiling. He's a Republican in the Senate. He's now U-turned. He's like, yeah, just kidding. I'm not going to vote for it. Oops. Bernie Sanders just introduced a proposal as part of the $3.5 trillion package, by the way, to issue $1,000 debit cards for seniors so that they can pay for dental visits, hearings, and vision to help individuals making less than $75,000 and couples making under $250,000 afford these additional insurances until Medicare potentially covers these benefits. But that could take years to enact. Overall, though, the biggest problem that we have here is timing. And folks, that's where we sit right now. We're literally still in limbo, wondering, is the government actually going to let our government default? If you look at Republicans, the answer is yes. And since Democrats are like, oh, we're running out of time to get anything done, doesn't look good either. Now, I personally expect that they're going to get some kind of emergency action done. It's kind of interesting to stay tuned with all the drama that's going on because it could affect financial markets, and as always, it's nice to know what's happening before it happens so we can prep. Anyway, folks, thanks so much for watching. Check out the programs down below, get that life insurance down below, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again. Bye.